It's working now. Gosh, our internet here is.
Yeah, according to this, it said that another thing was recording. So, okay, we'll call this council special session to order. It is Friday, October 20th. The time is 12:02 p.m. The topic of the hearing is a non-binding letter of interest for purchase of real property. My understanding is it's actually a purchase lease. I think that should read, or lease of real property. We had a company approach us, American Hyperion Solar, who's very interested in the property for solar cell manufacturing. And through the negotiation process, working with the two attorneys, we've come up with what we have in front of us. And there was some very good public comment from Mr. Peterson on the last go we had of the purchase sale lease agreement on this property. So I think I would turn it over to, excuse me, Mr. Knapp. I forget your first name here. Jeff Knapp, or Cap, I'm sorry. Because you drew it up, maybe we can walk through this agreement and what it means.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Give you a big picture, my take of this and the condition that it gets signed in. So we received the draft LOI. It was really not suitable for a real estate deal. I took it and I turned it into a purchase and sale letter of intent. Letter of intents for leases and LOIs for sales are usually very different in terms of what they worry about. So, well, let's just set up a sale LOI. Went back. Mostly 90+% of what I sent back is what is in front of us here today. I get the feeling that our counterparty just signed this doc as a way to try to get y'all in a room for 90-ish days to work out a deal. There's a lot of details missing. It's not binding. It doesn't even have a sale price. So it is largely just a way to talk. And so if we now to start make our way through the doc with that intro, right? We now at least are identifying the basic terms, right? What's the property that we're going to sit around and talk about? That's section 1. Section 2 is, again, these are some very fundamental terms that the parties say, well, here's how we want to do the deal. We don't have to live by the terms in here. It is non-binding. However, in real estate, there's kind of this norm, right? That you're not going to put something in an LOI and then retrade them, right? You're not going to go back and say, well, we don't really want to do that. And so it's important to sort of get this stuff out of the way, right? We don't want to be locked up, talk for 90 days if we're not going to talk about the terms in here. So first section, they're going to have to take the title subject to whatever is of record, whatever problems it has, right? It's going to be an as-is sale. That's what we have in 2B, right? And so we're saying we take property the way it is, as-is sale. We'll have to figure out how much you're going to pay, TBD, that's in 2C. Then we have earnest money, right? How much money is at risk once they get past a certain point in their due diligence? Now, I observe some minor changes been made to this from what I sent out. And so I think we want to clarify with our opposite side. Here it says that there's $610 in earnest money with 10% of the escrow being non-refundable. That's 2B first sentence there. That last part about 10% being non-refundable was an ad. I think we want to be clear whether or not, because later in this letter we talk about a $61,000 negotiation fee, a fee for us being willing to negotiate. We just want to be clear whether or not we're saying that $10,000 fee that we're taking to negotiate is being applied against this earnest money number, or if this was a different 10%. I don't know what the parties intended, but we just probably want to make sure we're clear with them about if we're hitting them for 10% non-refundable twice or just once. Anyhow, $610,000 after 90 days, that money becomes non-refundable unless the city were to breach or whatever. And these are all the terms that we're saying we want these to go into any final binding agreement. Section 3 talks about a pretty standard process of letting the buyer kick the tires on the property for about 90 days, figure out whether or not they're okay with it in its as-is condition, because as we said above, they have to take it the way it is. 4, contingencies, pretty standard stuff that says, look, buyer doesn't like it. After, during their 90-day look, they go, this isn't for us. They can walk and get the earnest money back minus the non-refundable part, the 10%. You keep that, that's the price of just getting to see the property. Closing date is then 30 days after their due diligence ends. So that would be 120 days after you start, unless they sign off on it sooner. And at that point, they have to pay. We give standard closing docs. So that's what Section 5 talks about. Now, 6 is where we protect the city, right? We say, look, this agreement is non-binding, right? We are going to, nobody's bound until we actually sign a real deal purchase and sale agreement, which will be negotiated by us and our council, right? So the city is being super clear here. We don't have to do anything. 7 is what's in it for the buyer, right? Exclusive period. They get 90 days. We're locked in a room with them. Can't go back channel market this property to someone else. Can't have a broker. Can't even entertain conversation if somebody comes to the city and says, hey, heard about this property. But we then make great pains in the middle is to say, look, after the 90 days, this section automatically terminates and the seller, a city, can go market the property in its sole discretion. And so, and here where you also talk about the $61,000 exclusive negotiation fee, the fee that they're paying for the right to get us our undivided attention for 90 days. Section 8, we got to keep this under wraps, confidentiality. Section 9, yet again, we established that except for the obligation to negotiate for 90 days and keep quiet, non-binding agreement. And then 10 says, look, everybody's going to cover their own costs. So that's the document in a nutshell.
Okay. Any questions from any counselors?
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. So you said the 60,000 is a negotiating fee, right? Or is it, that's where I'm confused. The negotiation fee or earnest money.
I think
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
John could probably,
Sorry.
I think John could probably speak a little bit on that 61,000 and because it's Project Sprint, and I think the staff that they know they need us as much as they need us as much as possible for questions.
So they should be paid.
That's their, John, can you want to speak? to that a
Yeah,
little
thanks,
bit?
Mayor. In our verbal discussions with the party, the intention is that 10% would be non-refundable. They're not expecting that money back.
Okay.
But I've got a question on that. What's the arrival at 610? Because you're getting 10% of that. What's 610 represent?
I'm not sure. We received an envelope with a big check in it, and we've been holding it to kind of come to agreements what the money's going to be used for. And
Well, that's fine, but I wouldn't say 10% of that fee because that obviously represents something, that 600 figure. So just say $61,000 then, if that's the money you want. Why 10% of that fee? Because that's saying there's something there. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's clarified in 2D of the 10% and the full amount of earnest money. Russ,
I would propose,
2D.
I would propose that what you do is 2D is a very different idea from the negotiation fee later. And so I think that's why y'all need clarity, right? We will not see a true escrow deposit, right, until you have a PSA.
Yes.
And what 2D says is if we have a contract, once you put in your 610, 10% of that can't come back out. But what is written in Section 7 says, look, we're not even going to sit down and talk PSA with you unless you give us 61 grand. And it's a fee. It's unrelated to the earnest money. It's unrelated to refundability, non-refundability. It's just to get in the door. And I don't know if the parties, because I wasn't privy to any of this, whether they really intended for that to be a double up or not, but I think that the business parties need to make sure they're clear on the intent. You don't want to be fighting with them about these $61,000 times two perhaps that aren't going back.
It just seemed like it was weaving itself into a PSA as a some kind of earnest money that's identified as 610.
Oh, yeah, no, you don't. So with respect to the negotiation fee, we try to address that in the last sentence. It says, 7, says consistent with the terms of this LOI, in no event shall payment or receipt of this exclusive negotiating fee will create a binding obligation to enter a PSA or convey. In fact, in the previous sentence, we also try to make it clear, this is solely to induce grantor to enter into this window, and it's not to induce us to sell the property. So we try to address that as best we can.
Thank
Those
you.
last two sentences of 7.
Yep.
On 7, you've got a blank there where induce seller to grant to the buyer the something day period. That's
Yeah,
vacant.
I sent this doc back to everybody with blanks for the time. Whoever filled in the 90s, I think they just forgot to put that in.
all right.
Yes, and I,
So that too.
yeah, yep.
I have a couple of questions that I highlighted. So in number 2B, my question is, can we do this without having settled everything with Boise yet? So, I mean, I have questions about moving forward and signing an as-is sell or lease with real property without other things being settled with Boise currently.
I agree with you, but that isn't what this agreement is. This isn't a purchase sale.
Well, we got to think of the future too. And they were going to find out if they don't know it. We have a clouded title on the property.
Yeah,
Is that
because we're not done with them yet. So I'm just curious about that.
Well, one thing that needs to be done is there needs to be a condition to close that the seller, the city keeps. Fire will absolutely insist on condition to closing that is gone. We won't get past due diligence with them. But from the seller's side, to protect you against the claim of breach, we need to make sure the final PSA reflects whatever outs you need in case the existing user, right, does not perform in the way they need to. They'll get out. Certainly, if they do damage to the property as they're leaving, that they can't get fixed before you have to close, that needs to be a big contingency, right? No, we're not going to close if we have this problem, right? Because, like you say, it's hanging out there. As this clause is more aimed to say, like, once you close, you bought it the way it is, right? Now, the condition may change between the day you sign the PSA when you close, but if you agree to close at that point, however the property is, it's your problem.
And then I had some questions around like 6, 7, 8 area and those public announcements and stuff. And obviously with some of the things that we've done with the dirt and other issues, I want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to posting property up for sale first, or making sure we're following all of those, guidelines, John.
Yeah, that would be part of the process for sure.
Okay, so, and if we give this to them and we sign it and they sign it, we're still gonna have to put the property up saying that someone else could still come in?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but the urban renewal, being that it's in an urban renewal area, it gives it some special latitude with some of those provisions.
I just want to make sure we're following our, the law, because we have to put,
Right.
when we are selling things or putting things up, you have to put it up with notice to the public so that other people have a chance to purchase the property, even though we know this property's been on the market, been out there a long time. We don't think anyone else is interested, but I want to make sure that that doesn't come back to us about us not doing it properly.
So coming back to John's comment, just on the, I think we need to have an urban renewal update meeting too, because within our urban renewal, we can actually, that's not necessarily true, and this property does fall in that urban renewal. And we could have Elaine Howard come out, or even Jenny Dimshow, who's here today, knows it fairly well and can speak on that a little bit too. That's part of the mechanism for urban renewals and sparking growth. So
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that that's clarified so that 3 months down the road, we don't get comments from the public on that about why that didn't happen. So I'm just trying to be ahead of the curve on some of the things we hear. And then the last thing I was just curious about in number 10 expenses, it says that we will do the due diligence to whatever matters associated with the prospective transaction. So what money will be used for that?
Well, it says the parties bear their own expenses,
Yeah.
including attorney's fees. So to the extent the city doesn't do any due diligence of its own, it, wouldn't spend any money on due diligence.
We're supposed to do due diligence, so isn't that what the contract says? We're supposed to do the due diligence. Okay,
The buyer will do their diligence investigating, but we might have work we have to do. Like, let's say the buyer comes to us and says, well, we need you to work out something with Boise or whomever, right? And so on your end, you go, okay, well, we'll run and do what you asked us to do to help you clear title because we want to get this deal done.
Mhm.
Well, this just says, well, you can't come back with your attorney's fees and say, here, you asked us to do this and you have to pay us back for doing it for you. We take care of our costs if we run around and do it. The buyer, they're going to pay their surveyor and their phase one and all those people for their stuff. And we all just.
okay. That's what I was just making sure if it was us that's supposed to be paying for the surveyor and all of that. I just want to make sure we knew where that was coming from. Okay.
So what I gather from this agreement from meeting with them was that this is not a land purchase sale agreement. This is them paying for the expedition of them doing their own due diligence, which says the city's not even liable in any way, shape, or form on any information we give them, but they want help because it's Project Sprint and they're under a timeline. They want to make sure they do cross their T's and dot every I before, and they want to disclose every little power issues to layouts and everything else, is what my understanding was. John, would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, we're prepared to share out. We've done an extensive amount of information on the site. It's in lots of different areas, and we're building a data set to share with them.
And the city has interest, of course. It's $1 billion investment, and it's 12, well, we heard 3,000, but 1,200 jobs on this chunk of property with $1 billion investment. That's a B behind that, if anybody's watching and listening.
I had a question about that, going back to number 1. So we've got the address here, but I'm just curious, how much property are we talking? Is that not important at this point in the game, or? So I have no idea how many acres we're talking about here.
Yeah, I would say yes, but Jeff, I would ask for your.
Yeah, and this, ultimately, all of these lack of details in here feed into is further unenforceability of this doc. If anyone ever tried to claim it was an actual contract, we'll identify the property we want to sell in there. But if somebody came back and said, well, you have to sell us, we said, well, we don't even know what we're selling because we didn't agree upon a legal description or dimensions. So I'm not worried about, that can come with time.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right. So this would be just a authorize and approve for signature. I think, John, can we just have you authorized to do that?
It's
You're
actually
there?
set up your
Okay.
signature.
All right, approve and authorize for signature for me to sign this basically non-binding letter of interest for purchase or lease of doing the due diligence on that. 90-day period.
Mayor, could you just speak real quick? So I know I got an email, I think we all did, from a citizen just asking what is the rush here? Could you speak briefly to that as?
Okay,
We just had our presentation Wednesday night. We received this document the same day. So what
what the rush is that they are in a timeline. They're trying to meet also some state and federal funding for this project, which makes it doable in our area. And just even the due diligence, that's why they've agreed to pay $61,000, even if it didn't work out, is because that's why it's called Project Sprint. And I really can't speak much more on that because we are bound to in here confidentiality agreement. So
Mayor, I can share that this isn't the only site they're looking at, and time is of the essence, and they're looking to be operational as quick as they can.
yes,
There's a sense of urgency around that. So.
yeah.
I've got,
But I read that email too from Mr. Peterson, and I think everything that he asked was actually answered with questions from the council.
I didn't get anything from Al Peterson, so I'm not sure what
Oh,
that
okay,
was.
all right, that was linked to this our meeting earlier. So go ahead, Russ.
oh, the confidentiality agreement, I was just, it seems pretty tight at points. I think at some point in time, the public really needs to get not necessarily involved, but press releases and bring them on board. You're going to find a lot of pushback because no knowledge of what's happening. So that's sort of typical, a lot of things that I think I know there's confidentiality and the dealings and stuff, but I don't know if that could be written any differently or not.
Well, I think I mean, with what we got the other day, was, it's solar cell manufacturing. There's 1 through 5 phases in the solar cell process. They just can't talk too much on what they're trying to do because of the technology being, apparently it's very well sought after, is what I gathered from our presentation. But I would totally agree with you that that would be something to follow soon.
Matt, may I ask just 2 quick questions? Are we talking about discretionary disclosure? We do have freedom, right, to make disclosures to the public as required by law, right? So you can meet your legal requirement, but if you're saying it would be smart politically, I don't think it's a bad thing to sort of float with them at this point, clarity, even via email, because that's a writing under electronic record laws, that they're okay with an announcement at a certain point, and just clear that up here to give yourself what you need if it goes beyond just meeting minimum legal requirement.
Yes, I think that sounds really good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I agree, though, that this, as much as we can share to the public, I think as soon as we can, I think that's important, because I had people at the end of that meeting the other night come up to me and say, can we see the things that you guys saw? I'd like to know what you guys were looking at. So it was kind of awkward to be up there looking at the presentation and nobody else was able to see it.
Great.
That takes care of that.
Okay, any other questions? Somebody's got a lot of chatter. I'm sorry. Does anybody have any other questions?
That's probably me. I don't have any.
Yes, Mark,
Okay.
turn your mic
So,
off.
I'm trying to have lunch.
No.
Just to speak to the confidentiality a little bit,
Also give them maybe.
the in Oregon, the sunshine laws, the confidentiality the company is looking for is really proprietary confidentiality against their competitors. The public side of it in Oregon, this meeting and other things are very public and disclosable.
Sure. The private, I hear that loud and clear. Private side is what they're, not the public. It's more what they have going on. Yes.
Technology, the size of the facility, the output, all of those kinds of factors, I think are the,
Well, that was evident. They showed up and gave us a presentation. So I think that was, yes. But, okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
It's called an LOI, right? Okay,
Yes.
I want to make a motion that we accept this LOI as written and submit it to parties.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded
Okay.
to approve the LOI. I'm gonna go to Council President Chilton,
Aye.
Councilor Sundin.
Aye.
Councilor Gunderson,
I put this on mute. So
yeah, Councilor Gunderson, you're on mute.
I unmuted me. I'll mute now.
Okay, all right. Councilor Hubbard,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right, everybody have a good day, good weekend. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.